I made and published my first mobile game in 1 week. So, day 1. I needed to figure out what I wanted my project to look like. I had a few ideas that could have been really cool, but ended up settling on one that had been with me the last few years. I plan on making this 2D tower defense game, kind of like Bloons Tower Defense, because that was one of my favorite game series growing up. To spice it up though, the player in this game will be a dog, and he's protecting his garden from a bunch of gnomes. Okay, cool. So we have our game idea, and now we need to start making it. The first step was to open up a new Unity project. And then I started with the square. The square will act as our gun, but it doesn't really look like a gun right now, so let's just use a placeholder. Okay, so the cannon is cool, but I think it would be cooler if instead of automatically tracking the enemies, I make it so that the player has to point the gun towards where it needs to go. In order to do this, we need to track the player's input by using Unity's okay, so Unity has a new input system, which is much more efficient and better and all that, but unfortunately it requires me to import it because they won't just upgrade their editor for some reason. So instead, I'll use their system from 2005. I finished the input system and then made it so I can also take input from the user's mouse, so I can test it easier. Now this game is only missing one thing: gnomes. To start with the gnomes, I needed some drawings, so I opened up Photo Pea and drew up 4 different characters. The basic gnome has a red hat, the quick gnome has a blue hat, the strong gnome is green, and the gold gnome is gold. Wait a sec. Then I added the sprites onto the enemy prefab, and now I need to set up the gnomes with a navigation system. To do this, I just set them to follow an array of waypoints. Each waypoint gets crossed off as soon as a gnome reaches that position. Then I wrote an enemy spawner script to assign those waypoints to the enemy prefab. Okay, so now I think it's time I lay out the structure for my game. Waves are how I plan on sending out hordes of gnomes, and the core mechanics go like this. There's a general wave manager that has an array of waves that it will send out. Each wave has a delay between sending out each gnome, and can also control what gnomes to be sent out. Individual gnome prefabs will control their appearance, speed, damage, health, etc. And this will work in both the campaign game mode as well as the infinite defense mode. It's getting pretty late though, so for tonight I think I'm just going to call it quits and start on some improvements tomorrow. Okay, so day 2. Now that we have our basic game set up, we need to make this game not bad. To do this, let's add an upgrade system so that after each wave, the player can upgrade their fire rate, damage, or health. In addition to adding an upgrade system, let's also add an item system for users to throw bombs or slime gnomes. This could be overpowered if they can use it whenever, so I added a cooldown timer so that the player has to kill 5 enemies for every single item they want to use. Now I'm going to wrap all these features up into my first game scene, the campaign level 1. I can copy and use this as a rubric for later. I added 3 waves, a percentage bar to let people know how much longer they have, and then splashed up some main menu UI for people to interact with the game better. I also decided to add music for some reason, and tried adding my own voice as sound effects for the gnomes dying, and I just... All that's left to do now is make a ton of levels. I spent the next couple hours designing 15 different levels and 1 boss fight, and then I called it quits for day number 2. Day 3. Now this is where things are going to get pretty interesting. I wrote out some plans for expanding the campaign scene to have an extra 3 worlds, and I'll also make a new map for each world so players can play it in the endless mode. This is where crunch time needs to happen though, because I still need to get more gnomes, more levels, and basically just repeat the entire workload from yesterday 3 more times. So I went ahead and spent the rest of the day planning out the worlds, and then I drew up some concept art for what the new enemies could look like. I'll have a lot of work cut out for me tomorrow, but hopefully I can get it all done on time by the end of this week. Okay, so day 4. We really need to start creating these levels. So I'm going to knock out the first world, water. I don't know how this went from protecting a garden from a bunch of gnomes to defending a water region, but I don't get paid to write lore. In fact, I don't get paid at all. So the water world is going to look pretty similar to the garden, but I'm adding in some different skins for the enemies, harder levels, and a better boss fight. The enemies keep their core principles, but they're all slightly harder and are now water themed. I'm going to do some off-camera work to add the rest of these worlds, but I'll show the progress tomorrow on how the game looks. Okay, day 5. I finished drawing up a ton of new gnomes, and I finally integrated them all in. I made some new levels, blah blah blah. This literally took me all like 8 hours total, and I did not sleep, so that's pretty cool. I'm pretty happy with how this game looks right now, so now I'm just going to try and find any bugs and see if there's just a few things to fix here and there.
Can you see through my eyes like open doors?
There were a lot of bugs. UI wasn't working, scripts had errors, gnomes were super fast. I spent a couple of hours fixing bugs. But I think tomorrow I'll be ready to finally start publishing. Day 6, Publishing Day. I'm planning on publishing to Google Play Store and Apple's App Store. The Play Store shouldn't be too hard, so I'll work on that to start. I was following along Unity's documentation pretty easily until I encountered the issue. So for anyone who doesn't know, Android 10 is the oldest I can build applications to in Unity. And when I was trying to do that, I came across a bug so hidden, so minuscule, and so impossible to find. I quit. I just stopped working on the game for a while because I got so discouraged by this. Okay, so it's been about a week, and I finally figured out the entire reason why my project isn't working. It's because I'm an idiot. I didn't know how to modify Android code, and so I ended up putting this little sideways caret at the wrong spot, and that ruined the entire project. After the issue was finally resolved, I got straight to work making a product page for the Google Play Store and filling out a bunch of questionnaires about my game. I uploaded the app bundles, published a store listing, and then bam, my game is now available on Google Play. However, I live in America, and that means Android users are kind of the minority, so now I need to publish this for Apple's App Store. Let's start by signing up for an account. That way we can just read some documentation and see the pretty simple steps that I'm sure we'll have to do. Oh my gosh, this looks complicated. So I followed along a pretty simple tutorial, and there were just a few steps. First, I signed up for an Apple developer account, I created a provisioning profile, I created an app ID, I did some weird magic in Xcode, and now boom, my game is now on iOS. Okay, so it was a little more complicated than that, and it did take a lot of work, but eventually I did end up publishing to the App Store, and now Gnomes VS Dogs is finished and available on the Play Store and the App Store. Okay, so that's honestly all I had planned for this video. I hope it was enjoyable to watch, and I would really appreciate if you could go download and try out my game. Like I said, it's available on the App Store and Play Store, so yeah, download those, rate 5 stars, like, comment, subscribe. I would say to watch some other videos, but this is actually the first YouTube video I've ever made, so yeah, hopefully stay tuned for the next one because I want to keep on making things like this. Oh, and I know this technically wasn't a week because I took a break from the project, but I worked on the game for about 7 days, so the title doesn't lie. Okay, bye.